So we do something a little bit different at Fuckup Nights. I'm not going to read out a bio. I'm going to tell you 3 fun facts about our first speaker. So our first speaker is Mallorie. She has been to 2 Rolling Stones concerts, and they are her favorite band. She has a menu recommendation for every restaurant she's ever been to, and she can slalom water ski with no hands. Mallorie, come on up here and share your fuck up.
Thank you. Perfect. Hello, everyone. So my name's Mallorie Brodie. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bridgit. We're a local construction software company. This is our team of 50 people. We sell our software across North America. We just raised our Series A round of funding this year, which was $6.25 million. And overall, things are going really well. I'm looking at Marcia right now, though, and she looks a little disappointed that I'm not getting to the bad stuff. So I will do that. It's like the interview question where they ask you, what's the thing that you're the absolute worst at? What's your biggest weakness? And then you say, I'm too much of a hard worker. That was kind of the angle I was hoping to take tonight, but I'll get to the good stuff. So in the deep, dark depths of the internet, there was a business before Bridgit. I was a Western student, and I was studying in the fine arts program in art history before going to the business school. In one of my business classes, they tasked us with this project. It was a feasibility project, so we had to come up with our own business idea. I was really excited about this because once I graduated, I actually wanted to start a business. So I got pretty into it, and I started my research right away. I was sitting in the class, and I overheard one of the other fine arts students talking about how she had all this art in her parents' garage, and they really wanted her to throw it out because it was just taking up too much space. So that was kind of interesting to me. So I went up to her, and I started asking more questions, and I said, okay, how many pieces are we talking? She said dozens and dozens. Asked her a little bit more information about what she wanted to do with them, and ultimately it was that she wanted to sell them. So I then continued this research. I interviewed about 50 other student artists, and I found that all of them had this art that they wanted to sell, and the biggest challenge with becoming an artist once you graduated was that you had no experience selling art. So they all wanted to try selling some art during university, so when they graduated, they could pursue this as a real career. So I decided that for my feasibility project, and ideally as a real business, I would launch a business called Start Gallery. So this was a Shopify site, actually, when they were only 100 people as a team. So maybe the smart choice would have just been joining Shopify instead of starting an e-commerce site on Shopify. But I started this business, and the thing for me that I got done really, really quickly that was keeping me really excited was that I had dozens and dozens of student artists getting signed up on the website very quickly. So I had hundreds of pieces of art really within a month. The problem was the sales weren't coming in. I kept working at it because I really felt like I was onto something. So I was determined that I would just keep getting more artists, and eventually there would be a piece that would sell. So then I went to Toronto for the summer, and this is where I really thought that I was going to make it happen. There was even more of an art scene there than, of course, there was in London, Ontario when I was at Western. And so I worked full time. Every single dollar I had, I would put back into the business, to the point that I even shared a queen-size bed with one of my friends for the summer to keep the rent costs down so I could buy more AdWords for the website. She has made me not mention her name because she still has her dignity. I, however, do not. So we shared a bed all summer. I would walk over an hour to and from work every day just so I could save on the subway money, all to put back into the gallery. But still, no sales. I then decided I would partner with this local event called Art Battle, where they brought a bunch of artists together. They would live paint and do an auction at the end of the night. They already had a pretty engaged audience, so I thought, okay, this is where the art buyers go. Let's do a live event with my Start Gallery artists, and this is really going to be the thing to kick off the sales for the business. So about 300 people came out to the event. I was really excited, and finally, I got my first sale to my mom. My mom bought a piece of art. Yep, still hanging in their house. No other sales, however. So I was going back to Western at this point, and I was kind of close to giving up on it, but then I heard about this pitch competition going on campus, and there was a little bit of a cash prize, so I thought that could keep me going for a little while. So I entered the pitch competition, and I won the pitch competition, and to my pleasant surprise, the other part of the prize beyond the cash was to pitch to Kevin O'Leary. He was coming to the Western campus, and I was going to get to pitch my art gallery to him. So I thought this was awesome. I was like, do you know what? Kevin O'Leary is not only going to be my second customer, because my mom was already the first, he was going to be my best customer, and he was probably going to invest in my business too. So this was great. So this is me doing the pitch, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, forget about the business, your shirt is fucked up. Because it was pretty frilly. And this is me pitching Kevin O'Leary, describing why he should absolutely invest in my business. Kevin actually grew up on my uncle's street too, so I was trying to smooth him over before the talk a little bit. It wasn't really happening. This is Kevin's face after my pitch. I'm still hopeful, however. And then he says to me, in a completely unapologetic way, "This business sucks, I hate it, and if you pursue it, you will starve to death." He hated it, he hated it. There was no, oh, maybe you should try this or maybe you should try that. He just hated it. All right. At this point, the reserves are pretty well empty. I've been working on this business for 3 years. The only sale I've made is to my mother, and it's time to start rolling it up because I'm gonna need to find a real job once I graduate. The dream of pursuing this business has ended. So I shut the business down, and upon that time, I was able to sort of think about what I fucked up. And there was 3 major things that I fucked up. A lot more, but 3 major things. The first thing, so I was just a university student, and I hadn't started a business before, and that meant that the learning curve was extremely steep. Even figuring out how to register a business seemed like a very complicated task. Signing up for an e-commerce site, I remember talking to Shopify on the phone for hours and hours and hours, and I just wasn't quite getting it. Learning how to do a little bit of graphic design. You probably saw one of the earlier signs, the logo wasn't great, so, basic graphic design. Finding all the artists, it all took up so much time that I didn't have anything left to actually experiment with the overall business model. The way I was approaching the customers, the way I was getting artists on the site, everything was really just there to build the framework of the business without actually being able to truly operate the business. So sometimes it was just this really steep learning curve, and that's okay. But what I've learned is that you need to uncover those unknowns as quickly as possible so you can focus on the right thing for your business and prioritize the right parts of your business. The second thing I learned was it's pretty difficult to go solo. Not everyone believes this, but for myself, it was really hard to be the only founder of the company. Now with Bridgit, I have my business partner, Lauren. We get along really well. We've been working together for about 6 years now. And I found that not only during the times when things weren't going well was it helpful to have someone by my side. We could motivate each other throughout the darkest days that we've had at Bridgit, and there's been a few. But it's also really amazing to have a broader set of knowledge in the early days. You only know so much as an individual, and if you can find the right partner to work with, then all of a sudden you can cover twice as many areas at once in the business. So having a business partner for me has been a game changer for Bridgit, and it was something that I wish I had done for Start Gallery. The third thing was the customer research and validation part of the business. I spent so much time with the student artists. I knew that they absolutely wanted to sell their artwork. Of course they wanted to sell their artwork, but I spent no time figuring out if people actually wanted to buy their artwork. So for any marketplace type of business, there's really 2 parts of it to validate. And what we did at Bridgit was we actually went out and did about 500 interviews on site, on construction sites, to make sure that we were solving a real problem. We made sure that they would pay us to solve that problem, and the revenue started coming in a lot faster. There was no way I'd be running Bridgit if 3 years later we still didn't have a sale, so I definitely learned that lesson pretty quickly. Now, when I shut the business down, I think the hardest thing was that I had been focusing 3 years of my life on art. Everything was about art. Talking to artists, going to galleries, learning about art, doing everything about art. And all of a sudden, I absolutely hated art. I literally didn't want to look at a picture hanging on my wall. I didn't want anyone asking me about art. I didn't want to go to a gallery. I wanted nothing to do with art, which is actually a very difficult thing because art is everywhere. It literally is everywhere. And so I spent a lot of time just trying to avoid the failure that I had because that was just the easier thing to do. And then I think only once we actually started getting some momentum with Bridgit did I realize that that time wasn't actually wasted at all. And all of the mistakes I had made with Bridgit, we were now able to use as stepping stones to ensure that Bridgit would be a success. So as we didn't repeat the same mistakes, I was able to really accept that failure of the first business. And the one thing that really resonated with me that my dad said to me once when we were golfing, and we got paired up with 2 random golfers, and I was so embarrassed to play with them because I thought they were gonna be looking at my bad shots and all of that. And he was like, Mallorie, they're not paying attention to you. They're paying attention to their own game. And I think it's really easy when you fail to think that everybody's watching you, but the reality is they're focused on whatever it is that's important to them, and they want to see you be successful, but they're not there to make you feel bad when you fail. So that was kind of a really big highlight for me. And looking back overall on the business, I'm really thankful that I did it. And the one quote that I always try and think of during those really dark days of Bridgit now are, time in the hour runs through even the roughest of days. So at the end of the day, even when you go through a really hard time with a company, at some point when enough time passes, you're going to be able to find the time to reflect and learn something from the opportunity. And that's what it was like for me in Start Gallery. Thank you very much.